what do you think that people would say to her? If a woman wanted to be a firefighter, what would people say to her?
Yes.
Could a woman do it?
No.
Oh, okay. How come?
Because she doesn't have any water.
She doesn't have any water. Okay.
And so when it comes to gender development, there's some really interesting findings from decades ago showing that really early on, infants can tell the difference between biologically male versus female faces. And there's some early work, again from decades ago, showing that infants, if you put the face of their mother and an unfamiliar woman next to each other, by 3 months of age, they'll look longer at the picture of their mother, right? So a lot of this work has been used to say that infants prefer female faces, and in particular, prefer their mother's face over other women.
So can you draw me a picture of a firefighter? Can you draw me a picture of a teacher? Okay, now if you drew a picture of a firefighter, was it a man or a woman?
A man.
A man?
I'm drawing another. It's a man.
It's a man, okay. How does the firefighter do that?
He has his hose.
He has a hose, okay.
And once you get to later years, so 2 or 3 year olds, you start to see things that are more social preferences rather than just perceptual preferences. So kids preferring to befriend kids of their same gender, for example. Kids preferring toys that are played with by kids of their same gender, that kind of thing.
Why did you draw a man for a teacher?
Because the kids are mans too, so they want the teacher to be a man too.
Oh, so wait, can I make sure I understand right? Did you say it's because kids are boys, and so they want a teacher who's a man, kind of like them?
Hi, my name is Krista Reinhardt. I've been a teacher for over 20 years, but I've been a teacher here at the Skidmore Early Childhood Center for the last 8 years, teaching 3, 4, and 5-year-olds.
Which colors should you use? Which colors do you want to use? You want to use the green?
This is for you, Mrs. Reinhardt.
Thank you, Mickey. Did you send me some mail? Should I open it?
I think things have changed just in the last couple of years. I remember my second year here at Skidmore, I had a little boy in my class who loved nothing more than to dress up in princess dresses. And his father was very against it, did not want his son doing that. And it was definitely a conversation between mom, dad, and I. And when it comes down to it, you know, I'm just the educator, I'm the teacher in the classroom.
What? That is so cool. A car that has a bed. Wow.
Even the language I use, I never say boys and girls, I always say friends. You know, presenting toys and things in the classroom, there's definitely like gender specific things that we have in the classroom. You know, we have princess dresses, but anyone can wear them. We have firefighter outfits, but anyone can wear them.
When we play princess again, I'm gonna wear this.
Wow, that's
Okay.
a pretty dress.
Okay, dude?
Kids make generalizations, right? They learn something about one individual or one type of animal or one individual human being, and they use that information and they make this giant guess that everyone else who is sort of like that must share that property. One set of theories around children's early reasoning about gender is that children think about gender as though it's an essence. It's something inside of you. You can't see it, you can't touch it, you can't observe it, but it's there and it's this property and you can't change it and it's part of who you are. There's some work recently that suggests that children think that gender is as essential and stable as species.
Is it okay for boys to wear nail polish?
Yes.
Is it okay for boys to wear dresses?
No.
No? How come?
Because they don't have that. They're not that big.
Because they're not that big.
Yeah.
Who usually wears dresses?
Sisters.
Sisters, yeah. You said that the firefighter you drew was a man. Could a firefighter be a woman?
No.
No, how come?
Because they are bad.
Oh, so firefighters are only men?
Yeah.
Yeah. So backlash is this concept that lots of researchers have been interested in, and it's this idea that people encounter strong pushback. That's an understatement. Backlash is social and economic penalties when they violate gender stereotypes. So by that I mean that there are pretty strict expectations for how men and women and boys and girls should behave. The way that we tend to go about this work is that we expose participants, hundreds of folks, to a resume or a set of application materials, and we hold that constant across everybody. So everyone is seeing the exact same applicant or resume, so we know that their qualifications are held steady. But for half of participants, we say, this is a male target, right? This applicant is John. And for the other half, we say it's female, so it's Jennifer instead. One example study that we've done somewhat recently is that we were interested in whether or not men in early elementary education encounter backlash. In this study, we exposed participants to the application materials of someone who's applying for a job as a kindergarten teacher. And, we say either this is, these materials are coming from John or from Jennifer. And participants responded really positively to the female applicants when the materials were ascribed to Jennifer. She was rated high. She was very likable and perceived as a great fit for the job. But John encountered backlash. People did not like him. And in particular, above and beyond that, they questioned whether he would pose a safety threat for kids in schools. That did not happen to Jennifer. Again, this is an example of the ways in which behavior that violates gender stereotypes can result in negative perceptions of the person that's doing it. Distrust, questioning their motives, whether or not they might be dangerous. When, again, the materials were exactly the same. John wasn't doing anything different than what Jennifer was doing. He wasn't on paper doing anything more suspect or dangerous. He was encountering that penalty because his behavior was gender inconsistent.
Hey, look how beautiful I am. Beautiful, Adam, but still, boys are not princesses.
They can be princesses.
Why else might they experience gender backlash? Well, if you want to know what my evidence is besides anecdotes, I have research that I conducted recently that shows that adults tend to penalize 3-year-olds who don't conform to gender stereotypes. So to do this study, what we did is we presented adults, a whole bunch of adults. Some were parents, some weren't. It turned out that parents behaved just the same as non-parents. We showed them these little vignettes where, we have Bobby, and Bobby likes to play with dolls and wear tutus. And then we have Jen, and Jen doesn't like to brush her hair and plays with soldiers and likes to get dirty. And we had normed these vignettes so that they were masculine or feminine. And what we showed was that 3-year-olds who had gender inconsistent vignettes were rated as less likable by adults. I can have all the anecdotal evidence in the world that children are penalized for violating gender stereotypes, but we also have scientific evidence that at least from the age of 3, kids are experiencing these penalties from adults, and specifically that adults rate them as less likable.
The reason children face backlash of any kind is a part of our larger problem, that children in this day and age are growing up and they don't have a lot of empathy towards others, and their thoughts are very rigid one way or another. So there's no room for thinking, oh, this I think this, but this person might have a different belief or different thought, and I can open up my mind and care about them as a human being and kind of accept them for who they are, because that's what human beings should do, be kind to one another and have empathy. But I think that children are, to many factors, technology, immediate gratification, getting everything they want, not having, as much social interaction because of technology. They're really not developing that sense of empathy for one another.
So the teacher you drew was a woman. Could a man be a preschool teacher?
Probably.
Probably. How come?
I guess everyone should have the right to be whatever they want.
Can you draw me a picture of a preschool teacher?
A preschool teacher.
And take as long as you want, and you can use as many colors as you want.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think would happen to a man if he was a preschool teacher? If he decided to be a preschool teacher, what would happen?
I think the preschool kids might be a little confused, but I think they'd get used to it by about a week.
A week. Why do you think they would be confused at first?
Because maybe that man was new. And some of the preschoolers had been in preschool for a little while and only had women teachers.
Oh, and they only had women teachers. So is it more common that a preschool teacher is a woman?
Not really sure.
Not sure.
But I guess that the preschools that I know of, it's mostly women.
What do you think people would say to a man that wanted to be a preschool teacher? What kind of reactions do you think he would encounter?
I think at the kind of the extreme end, some might suggest not so subtly that maybe there was some kind of inappropriate relationships going on between he and the children.
If a man decided that he wanted to be a teacher, what do you think people would say to him?
You can be a teacher, but I don't know because mostly girls be a teacher. But if you be the first person who be's a boy teacher, you'll get a big trophy and you'll be very famous.
In your experience as a parent, how have you done that? What advice do you have for me, thinking as a new parent about how to approach gender in my parenting?
I try not to focus on it too much. So when our children were, and one of them still is, and the 1 through 4 or 5-ish age range, we just don't talk about it a lot. And when they ask to do non-gender conforming things, we don't bat an eye about it. We say, sure, so yeah, you want to wear pink? That's awesome. You want to paint your nails? That's cool. What I think the more challenging things have been when, my older one, Reed, who's now in kindergarten in public school, is starting to have these ideas that are starting to be kind of more gender conforming. And then the way that I handle that is always just ask him, why do you think that? So, I'm trying to think, there's not an example that's coming to my head. It was about wearing a dress. And something about boys wearing dresses. And Reed said, boys can't wear dresses. And I said, well, why? And then he said, well, because girls wear dresses. I said, that's fine, but how does that... I try to approach it from kind of a logical standpoint, right? So what is it about girls wearing dresses that precludes boys from also wearing dresses? And he's usually pretty receptive to that line of thinking, because the dots kind of start connecting, like, oh yeah, just because girls wear dresses doesn't necessarily mean boys can't, because boys and girls wear lots of the same things, right? And so that's usually how I handle it. I try not to make it a big deal, and there's never any judgment at all. Like, I don't get upset at him for having these kind of ideas, because I know that they're largely coming from the environment around him. So I just try to correct it, not make a big deal out of it, and just take them as they come.
And the reality is we just don't know. And I think this is why this is a really exciting time for this research field, right? As our norms change and as kids grow up in an environment where adults and the people around them are a little bit more fluid in terms of what they expect from men and women and what men and women look like, it'll be interesting to see if kids also pick up on that flexibility and if those categories get more nebulous for kids as well. We just don't have the experimental data, right, to say whether that will happen, and you know, we'll see.
So this is my preschool teacher. I would give this a C- if I were to assess myself. And then this is my firefighter, which I would give a B+.
Excellent.